Bibles to Ephesians, the 4th chapter, and verse 29. We're continuing on that sermon series there. Paul is talking to the church in very practical terms, what to do and what not to do, and how to treat one another as fellow Christians. And he's really given us an earful in the past couple of weeks, certainly for me. And he talks to the people about how they treat one another and what it is that's supposed to go on in the church. And in verse 29, he comes down to a very specific thing about people's communication with each other. Now, I was thinking about communication, about the connections with people. He says that we need to not have unwholesome communication with one another. And it struck me that there was an incident worldwide in 2008. In China, of all places, China normally doesn't say anything about what's going on on the inside. They don't want anybody prying into their business. They don't talk to anybody. It's part of the communist system. The communist system believes that the world is moving from individualism to a community group, and when it comes to that perfect community, everything will be perfect, and everybody will have everything they need. That's the thought that's behind the Communist Party. And their one goal is to keep their program going until that perfect time comes. Therefore, whatever they do, whoever suffers and however bad it is, it's all okay because it's leading someplace good to see. But they don't want anybody talking about it. They don't talk about it. They don't want anybody communicating. They usually just keep it quiet if there's a problem. But in 2008, even in the communist government, it was publicized, somebody was messing with the milk supply. The powdered milk that they were producing, they were having children be very, very sick. It was 6 infants died of advanced cases of kidney stones. Babies who were feeding on this formula. Somebody in the industry was trying to produce enough milk to match their quotas, to accomplish the task that was set before them. And in order to do that, they were playing with it. The milk that they had was not high enough in protein content. They had to do something about it, and so they added this chemical known as melamine. It's a chemical that is used to produce plastics, fertilizer, but it will mask the quality of the milk by making it appear to have a high protein content. And they were putting that in there. There were 6 that we know of that died. There were others with kidney damage. There's an estimated 54,000 children in the hospital over this deal. 54,000, and probably as many as 300,000 consumed some of this tainted milk. And the shocking thing about that is milk is supposed to be so wholesome. You know, for a kid growing up on a dairy farm, I always thought it was the perfect food. That's how we made our living. So, of course, I would think that. And I loved it. I loved it and I loved it. You would think that this image of milk being the right thing, and here it is, it turns out to be dangerous. It was killing people, frankly, and not just people, but the littlest and the weakest and the most helpless among them were the victims of this. It destroyed the vulnerable. Oh, that struck at my heart. I suppose it struck at everybody's heart to think of the suffering of these innocents. We see how something that is supposed to be so good can turn on us and be so bad. And Paul says that speech is the same way. Let me read you verse 29 in chapter 4. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Unwholesome words, what are we talking about? It's a word that means rotten, it means useless, it's lost its value, it's purposeless, you don't benefit from it, it no longer gives direction or strength or life. So Paul is talking about spiritually corrupted words, damaged words. Just like it damaged the children have this tainted milk, tainted words also damage God's children. It's destructive. And I begin to think probably what those might be. I was able to find some scriptures, I think, that will shed us some light. The first one that came to my mind is that we have violent speech in our culture, and there's a lot of it. The nature of life is conflict. It really, truly is. We try to live together as best we can, but we never see it all the same way, do we? There's always tension between people. And there are relationships that really burden us down, that give us a hard time. When I was in grad school in Cincinnati, I worked at this little pizza joint, 15, 20 minutes from the building where I lived. And it was interesting. A lot of us from the graduate school were working the morning shift. We had a great time together, but there were always a few others. And they hired this young guy from the local community. Where the graduate school is in Cincinnati, it's in the White Ghetto. It really is. These are Appalachian people who moved, their families moved 3 and 4 generations ago, and that part of the city is blighted with all sorts of troubles. It's very difficult. And this young guy had one thing that he really liked to do. He played a little softball. What he really liked was to drink. And he did it very quickly. Anytime he had money or could find somebody who would buy him a drink, that's what he did. And he would come into work just creeping, just like a little old man, just bent over with this headache. He would sit down in the chair as long as he could, just put his head on the desk, trying to get past the suffering that was doing. And of course, he had trouble getting to work. He didn't have transportation. All of his money was not going into a car, I promise you. It was going into a tank, but it was this one. And so my boss said, "Now, Craig, you come from that direction. Couldn't you stop and pick him up?" Wasn't really a question. It worked pretty good the first couple of times. First time I pulled up there, and he was kind of at the door. He came creeping down the stairs so as not to fall. He got in. By the end of the first week, I was having to honk 3 and 4 times. Let me tell you how unhappy that made me. Why do I have to bear the burden for this guy's bad behavior, his weaknesses? Why? I just would not in my stomach. And I hated the position that I'd been put in of having to do these things. It was like a dragon working. Do you know the dragon I'm talking about? There's something that just plagues you and bothers you and presses on you. And perhaps you're just able to get those things out and deal with them up front. But I'm a stuffer. Stuff my emotions down. My whole family are stuffers. We stuff those emotions down until they explode. There it is. And when those explosions come, the words that come out, even if they're true, even if they might be appropriate in the right setting, are usually corrupt because they come out so angry, so violent, and so hurtful. They're calculated to tear down, to point out faults, and broadcast them to the community, and so drag this person into the pain that we feel is causing us. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't just want to straighten this relationship out. I wanted to flatten this guy. That's how I felt. You ever been there? Those kind of pressures? We are tempted to take our words and use them to hurt and to wound and share with them the frustration that we feel. It's like kicking the dog. You come home from work, things are bad, you kick the dog. But usually it's not the dog that gets kicked. Usually it's people who are around us get verbally kicked, and bit, and snapped at. We need to bring words that give strength and life and power to those who are around us, that build them up. And angry words never do. That's a corruption that we do not need. The angry, the hurtful, and the violent words. We need to speak truth in love. Apostle Paul makes the connection between those two. Truth in love. Kindly, gently, for the good of the other. So the first corrupt words are violent words, the angry words. The second kind of corrupt speech is something quite different. Matthew, the 12th chapter, verses 34 through 36. This is a familiar scripture. Jesus says to the leaders, "You brood of vipers, how can you who are evil say anything good? For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in him, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in him. But I tell you that everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken." Get that? Empty words? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Jesus is really letting these guys have it. What a bunch of rotten people. The truth is, he's not talking to a bunch of lowlifes. He's not talking to a bunch of people who don't know any better. He's talking to the educated of the educated, the religious of the religious, the believers of his society, the teachers of the law, the people who should know. But the problem is not what they understand, it's not what's in their head, it's what's in their hearts. Their motives are corrupt. Leaders of Jesus today want to be right in order to be right, to be in power, and to lead, and have position and status. So they're constantly alert to anybody who threatens that status. They bring the pain, they bring the hurt. And so when they came to Jesus as the outsider, he's their problem. And in jealousy and anger and frustration, they allowed fear to dominate them, and they pushed him away. This one who offered him hope and peace and rest, pushed him away.